Hi, it's me again with Corel tips and tricks. Either I misunderstood him or he maybe sent this in the first email, but he wants to do, he's a scroll sawer. He cuts this out on a scroll saw. So, and this would work for laser engravers too. So pay attention or listen or don't leave. And so what I'm going to do, since we're going to put them on the bottom of these parts, I'm going to take in the email, he didn't understand the nudge factor. I've got my nudge factor set on 3 inches. When I make a new object with the Smart Fill tool, I can nudge it over using my arrow key to nudge it over 3 inches at a time. And what's so good about the nudge, you can nudge it right back. So I'm using the arrow keys on the keyboard, not the numerical arrow keys, which you can use, but you have to unlock your numbers, your number lock. Most keyboards today, I would think it's below the enter and the shift is some arrow keys. So I'm going to fill in this one too, and I'm going to just nudge it over. And I'm going to move this out of the way. And for the one I'm doing it for, and he actually sent me this font, and he evidently is a really good scroll sawer, so I can't say anything. But if I was going to scroll saw, this wouldn't be the font. Because this would be, this has so many sharp points. But I'm going to use this font, and maybe that's a particular font he wants. But what I'm also going to do is make another copy of this and hit the plus key, another copy of this and hit the plus key, because I'm going to do what I did before. And because I want that kind of that text to path. So what I'm going to do is take two 2-point lines, and I'm going to cut me because that's all one object, it'll delete everything. And then I can delete these lines. And I think this is a Victoria one over here. And I'm going to still leave it as a font right now. That font might be a little bit big, but you need to make it big if you're going to scroll saw this. I would have to think. I used to do a little scroll sawing back in the day before I got a laser. So I'm going to text the path and put it right on that path. Now I can take that font and left click, right click. Now he evidently maybe draws in half. Let me go ahead and take this and go to object and break the text apart and then grab that line and make sure it's well, you know what? I'm going to have to do it on the other one anyway. But I want this, because he's not laser engraver, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to make it a hairline. And then I'm going to take my font and nudge it over. So he wants this so you could use maybe a little bit taller font. Now I'm going to set my nudge factor on 0.01. And I'm going to take my text and I'm going to nudge one down and one over. You want some strength, and that may be a little bit too much. So let's change the nudge to 0.00. Some people don't understand that works, but it'll minutely move it up, especially if you hold down the shift key, but it's really too little. So let's go 0.001. Just barely nudge it up. I want to be able to touch all the letters. And like we did before, that's not going to work. So what I can do is, it's still a text. I can go to object and break the text apart. And then I have just this text. And he probably wouldn't want that way anyway. So I would actually angle it over a little bit and then move this one kind of down where he's got this, maybe move the eye over, because he's got to get a scroll saw in there. And you got to think about strength. So I'm going to just kind of, whoop, I got the line. I don't want the line. So maybe grab the C. And you want a little bit, so you can tweak these letters just ever so slightly for your benefit. And we could actually move this letter. Whoop, don't move the line, move the letter. And I'm going to call that good for right now. Then this would possibly weld. So let's try it. Nope. We could go, and so to do this, I'd have to group these together. And then select these both and go back minus front. That's just the opposite of what I wanted. That's what I want right there. But it didn't take away all the lines because I was so close. But what I'm going to do now is go up to object and break the curve apart. And then I can go back and look and take out these little bitty lines. Now, to me, a rounder font, okay, that one didn't really work. But what we can do is take the shape tool and just bring this down a little bit. And then we can delete that with the, and then before I'm over, I want to smart fill this, and it'll put all that, and maybe for a scroll saw, it's not going to really matter. But then you can actually take this line away and just nudge this. Okay, I think I had my nudge set on 3 inches. Change that to 3 and nudge that. Okay, it didn't take the, that's why you would really want to maybe smart fill that, but I'm going to weld it together. And then I can just nudge it over. Now he's got a pattern, for cutting that out. So now it makes a little bit more sense. But and I guess he's going to do the same thing up here. It'd be the same process on the vector. And, he's making scroll saw patterns. And this is just a suggestion. Of course, that looks cool. And I don't know how, that's a pretty talented scroll sawer. And let's look at the picture. If he's used this before, this one wouldn't be quite as hard. I think it'd actually stand out better if you did. And this is just a suggestion. I don't like that when I do that. This is just a suggestion. I would pick, I don't think it's copper plate. Now that we're in the seas, we can go down. And because you're doing it this way, the letters don't have to touch each other. Copper plate, Cooper is what I was looking for. I mean, that is a really good font, I would think, to cut out. And, this is just a suggestion, maybe not for the person I'm doing it for, but somebody in the future. It's a really good font. I do that quite often. So let's just do this font. Take the virtual segment delete key. And by putting those lines, the lines or indexing lines are going to stop those from leaking or stop the cutting from cutting. So we're a little bit too big of a font. And then, well, see on this one, we didn't correct. And he was also asking about how to get rid of nodes. See the nodes? I'm just circling the nodes. As long as I don't change the shape too much, I got rid of all the nodes. Here's even one right here. Now this is going to change the shape. No, it didn't. So that's a perfectly smooth line. In a scroll saw, it's not going to matter. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to reduce it just a little bit more. I'm going to go fit text to path, put on the path. And see this, you could actually already have it down in there a little bit. Then I'm going to left click, right click. That may be too low. And because we have already text a path that it won't move, well, we can move it right here. But it's going to go, see, it's maybe too much. You know what? Just wonder if we can go, let's see what the other number was. -6. Let's go 0. See, it brought it down a little bit. -3. Well, that didn't work. Anyway, it'd be almost easier to go to object, select it all. That's a lot of mistake people make is they don't select it all. And now we can set our nudge factor. Just remember the 3.0. Let's go 0.01. And just, I'm going to downward click with the keys and then left click, kind of make it even. Now I'm going to go here and go back minus front. That was the opposite of what I wanted. Let's go front minus back. That's not working. Sometimes it doesn't work, depending on how you've done it. And even the well doesn't work. So in that case, I'm going to make this line a hairline. It really doesn't matter because he's just going to use this for a piece of paper for a scroll saw pattern. We can virtually segment. Okay, see how you can't cut that? The reason you can't cut that is because this is a text. So we're going to convert it to a curve. And when we do that, I find this is sometimes a little easier than trying to figure out which one of the welds is going to work. Whoop, went a little too far. Virtual segment delete key and just delete these lines. Now, the good thing about it, well, you know what, I messed up there. I should not do that to this line. I need to set my nudge factor back on 3 inches. And I need to do it to this line, because that's the one I want to cut out anyway. So I'm going to take and see how that's, okay, I backed up enough where that's not a text anymore. I converted it to a curve, and I'm not worried. I mean, normally those 2 lines would be a hairline. And see, we're close enough where this is going to be strong enough. And then delete this one and move this back over there. And there you have it. To me, personally, that's a lot more readable and stronger. But he said he cut this out in 2006. So 23 years ago or 22 years ago. So he evidently knows what he's doing. Anyway, that's the way I would do it. So just think about your nudge factor. I normally keep mine on 0.01 or 0.001 because the laser engravers do a little detail. And I mean, it's just, okay, just explain it. This is a 1 inch box. I'm going to set my nudge factor on 1 inch. I can move this thing around 1 inch. I can make a duplicate and move it 1 inch. I can make a duplicate and move it down 1 inch. I can make a duplicate and move it to the right. I'm just using the arrow keys. Anyway, hope that helped somebody someday, and thank you for watching.